I'm Holly White, and I'm here with the former leader of the Green Party, Natalie Bennett. Great to have you here.
Lovely to be here.
So, Natalie, it looks incredibly stressful running for Prime Minister. What was it like?
Of course it was stressful, but it was also tremendously exciting. I mean, for the Green Party, we had in 2015 the kind of profile that we'd never had before. We also got the kind of result that we'd never had before, 1.1 million votes. That was more than we got in every general election added together. So to be part of that, what was known as the Green Surge, the big jump forward for the Green Party, to be able to get, there debating David Cameron and Ed Miliband on national television, it was a wonderful experience and I don't regret a moment of it.
That's really good. How did it make you feel to be so scrutinised in regards to anything you say?
I don't think I mind the scrutiny about what you say. One of the things that's perhaps most difficult about being in politics, particularly for women, is you're having to worry about what you look like the whole time. And I was just recollecting actually earlier today, I was near Leicester and I was with some school pupils supposedly having lunch, but it was just after the Ed Miliband bacon sandwich incident. And so there was a local journalist who was, a local camera person who was there with the camera on me the whole time, so I didn't get any lunch. So, that kind of scrutiny of policies and ideas is great, and that's what politics should be about. That whole focus on image and appearance and, the way you're seen as a person can get a bit much.
Sorry to bring this up, but take that interview on LBC about housing and the fallout from that. Now, I'm all for giving politicians a hard time, but from a human point of view, it must have had an effect on your mental health being under such a microscope, as it would anybody, not being superhumans and all.
Well, I think at the time I said, and I still do regret the fact that, we had a great policy on housing and I wasn't in a position to put that across. But I think what did happen after that was there was a sense that the whole media then starts to focus on you and trying to get you to make another mistake. And so they just throw sort of random number questions at you. And the whole thing just becomes a game. And I think politics is much more important than that. It should be more important than that. It is about the policies and the ideas, not about whether you can remember a particular number at a particular moment. The ideas and the reasons behind policies are what people really need to understand, and the need for change in Britain. That's much bigger than a particular single number.
How did running for Prime Minister affect your personal life?
Well, I think ever since I've been involved in the Green Party, I say that, I really believe in having a work-life balance. I just don't have one. And of course, the 2015 election was very much a case of any sort of life disappeared at all. So I'm still, although I'm now former leader of the Green Party, I'm still doing full-time politics. But I'm trying to get a little bit more balance in my life. Not entirely succeeding, but trying. And I think that's actually important because you do just become very narrowly focused if you're just doing politics. So, a little bit of yoga, little bit of different things as well is good for me.
If you could go back in time and give yourself some advice to the old you at the start of the campaign, what would you say?
Well, I think going back in time, we didn't see the Green Surge coming and the big increase in votes and attention. And what I would say is perhaps we were used to just seizing every media opportunity we could because we got so few of them. And we were so used to seeing UKIP and Nigel Farage covered again and again and again that when the attention did come on us, we were used to saying yes to everything. And perhaps recognising that some things were going to be very difficult and we weren't 100% prepared for them, saying no. Say no a little bit earlier probably would have been a good decision.
Okay, so let's move on to something else. How do you feel we can encourage more young women to take an interest in politics?
Well, I think we have a real problem with the nature of our politics. I have in front of me, and I have to say we're in the Chemistry Cafe in Stourbridge, and it's very science themed, so I have a T-Rex in front of me. And, it sometimes feels when you see British politics, you see it on the television, Prime Minister's questions with grown men, and it is usually the men making chicken noises at each other across the chamber. And in fact, today I know that John Bercow, the Speaker, told off some Tory MPs for basically trying to yell louder than Emily Thornberry for Labour, just a woman being drowned out by a lot of men's voices being very loud. That's not positive politics, and it doesn't encourage women to get into politics. So I think what we need to do is make sure we're really encouraging women at all levels to get involved, to get engaged, and put as many role models and see lots of young women women from different backgrounds, from ethnic minority backgrounds, from different class backgrounds. We've really got to encourage, support, get people to stand. And, in the Green Party, I'm proud that pretty well every election we've had the highest percentage of women candidates. In most elections we have the highest percentage. But that's something we have to keep working at. So, I say we have to keep asking people to stand. The first person who puts their hand up to say, oh, I'll stand for that, is very often male, and there might be a better woman in the room who, if you ask her a couple of times, might come forward. So I'd say, we need to be aiming for a 50-50 parliament. There's a great campaign called that, which I'd strongly recommend people to follow on Twitter and Facebook and everything and get involved with. And when women come to stand, it's really important that you don't feel like you're on your own. You don't feel like you have to do all yourself. Try and get a group of friends and supporters around you. And even if you're someone listening to this and you think, well, I'd never do it myself, but who among your friends would be a good person to do that? Ask them to do it and say, I'll help you and support you. You don't have to do it on your own.
If we were to launch a campaign to get more young women in the Dudley area interested in running for office in the future, how would you advise us?
I think what we have to do is talk to politics, help people to see that the decisions made in your local council, the decisions made in Westminster really affect people's lives. And politics can sound very esoteric and it's full of technical terms and jargon. And I've just last night was at the New Economics Foundation watching some people, general members of the public, interviewed and were told, what do you think about the economy? And people were going, oh, I don't really know what I should say about the economy when someone's filming me. But we all know what it's like for people who are hit by benefit sanctions, being left with no money. We know what it's like for people trying to live on 0 hours contracts, minimum wage, people who are groaning under the weight of student debt. We have to say that all of these things, political choices have been made in the past to create the society we have now. We can reprogram this society and produce something entirely different. And politics is how you do that. And politics is, of course, Westminster and your local council and running for office. But politics is also just simply starting a campaign to get a pedestrian crossing on your local street where it's dangerous, or clean up your local park, or if you're at a school or college and there's something you really don't like about how it's run, start a campaign to do things differently. One of my favourite campaigns I suggested was up in Bradford. A college, the sixth form invited me to lunch after I'd spoken to them, and because I was sort of seen as a VIP visitor, I got proper cutlery to eat my baked potato with, and they all had plastic knives and forks. So I said, here's your first political campaign. Start a campaign of real cutlery for everybody. And it's the sort of thing that is small scale, perfectly winnable, good for the environment. Obviously we're all focused on plastics at the moment, but also improves people's quality of life, and it might even save the school some money.
Do you think British politics will ever shake the old man white image? Old white man.
I think British politics is going to change enormously. I used to say for many years, the future of politics doesn't look like the past. And I don't even say that anymore because that's so clear after the last few years in politics. But I think what's really crucial, and we have now a clear political crisis, and our current parliament is not able to take us forward. We need to make Britain a democracy, because Britain isn't a democracy at the moment. In the last election, 68% of votes didn't count. We have a first-past-the-post electoral system where people get elected into safe seats and can just stay there for as long as they want to, without any democratic accountability at all. So actually, next Tuesday, I'll be taking part in a 24-hour fast called Hunger for Democracy. And that comes from an organisation called Make Votes Matter. Now, that grew out actually of an efforts of a 17-year-old a member of the Youth Parliament from Cornwall called Owen Winter, and it was actually after the 2015 election. He was so fed up with the least proportional election result in British history that he started a petition, and from that has grown a whole major national campaign and a national organisation, and it's saying, let's make Britain a democracy. Let's make sure that the seats reflect how people have voted. I haven't even started on the unelected House of Lords yet, but let's focus on the Commons and make sure the Commons is genuinely representative. And if we do that, countries that have proportional fair voting systems, more people vote, they have more women representatives in Parliament, we can have the kind of peaceful revolution in politics that we need. And a part of that peaceful revolution has to be getting, at least 50% women in Parliament.
Gender bias is big news at the moment thanks to the BBC payroll. Do you think there is a gender bias in politics too?
Absolutely, I think there's a gender bias, and I think, when the first time I went on Question Time, I was warned that, it's difficult when you interrupt because you'll get lots of hassle on Twitter and people will say you're a strident woman. And I found that it was impossible to actually get in on Question Time unless you interrupted, unless you were prepared to be a bit loud. And so the next time I did that, and I behaved the way that lots of males do on Question Time regularly, and I got that kind of criticism of being strident and loud and how dare you interrupt. So there is a double standard, there is a different standard in politics. And of course that's not really surprising because there's a different standard in the real world, and politics ultimately is part of the real world. I actually, last weekend I was at the Women's March in Sheffield, and I'm very proud actually. It was that really snowy Sunday. We had 200, mostly women, came along on a Sunday morning, very, very cold. And the slogan was, "It's time." And, I became a feminist at age 5. And I've been saying, ever since it's time, and thinking we were going to win certain things and things would really change. And the Me Too campaign, things like the BBC expose, have shown far too much still hasn't changed. And it is time to really change. And I think there's a real groundswell now, young women, older women, lots of people saying we won't take it anymore. And now really is the time to build a difference in politics, in business, in the BBC, in society generally.
Well, thank you for the interview, Natalie. Do you have any advice for young people out there who maybe one day would like to work in the political field?
Well, I think, obviously you can go and study politics and nothing wrong with that. But anyone who's interested in getting involved in politics, and I'm unusual in politics in that I have a scientific background. My first degree was in agricultural science. And I'd really like to see more people who've studied science going into politics, because that's a useful background to have. So what you can do, whatever you're studying, the way to get into politics is to do politics. So look at something about in your local community, in your college or school or university, look at something you don't like and say, I want to change that. And start a campaign, get some friends together, start a campaign to change it. And the first campaign you run, you'll make some mistakes. But boy, you'll learn a lot. You'll learn perhaps how to write a petition. You'll learn how to approach the authorities or the principal of your college or whatever. You'll learn how to bring people to a public meeting, how to make that meeting work. And those set of skills of practically doing politics, I'd like to see everyone doing that. I've got a saying that politics should be something you do, not have done to you. And I think, I would say to everyone, make politics something you do, and then you never know where it might lead you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Good stuff. Very good.
Can I get a photo of you
Sure.
pretending to talk to each other?
All right. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Radio. So this is where I